doomsday scenarios. And I don't know, there's something about it that just has me enamored. I don't know if it's like the analog horror nature of it or like just the creepypasta nature of it. But, the other week I actually saw that Russia's doomsday radio was playing Swan Lake, dumping things like cryptic codes, and a lot of people are wondering, whoa, is World War III on the menu? Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the famous words of Ivan Drago from, like, Rocky, if it dies,
Ivan Drago.
if he dies, he dies. That's how I basically look at the world. I'm one of those people where, like, I used to be a hypochondriac about the world ending, but now I'm just like, listen, if the bombs go off, okay, there's really nothing you can do about it, so you might as well live every day with positivity, and you might as well bring joy into everyone's life, because one day everything comes to an end. And, listen, you might as well just enjoy life, or try to enjoy as much of it as you can before it does. Now, ladies and gentlemen, obviously I saw that Russia's doomsday radio is apparently activated and transmitting encrypted codes. Now, a normal person would probably look at this and go, oh shit, that's scary. But if you're somebody like me that has an actual interest in this, these are number stations. All the way back in the Cold War, we used to have these stations that were broadcasting secret messages that people could listen into. And a lot of these are actually meant just to relay commands to the rest of the world, especially to armies and stuff like that. To give you an idea, you can listen to a number station right here. So the actual number station that these guys were bringing up the doomsday radio is something known as UVB-76, also known as the buzzer. And we're going to be talking about how this thing gets hacked, like, pretty much all the time. But yeah, for anybody that wants to know what this stuff sounds like, here I actually have, like, a wideband web SDR kind of shortwave receiver that one can listen to. Now over here, the way you can listen to this is you can put in the numbers 4625 kilohertz and type in USB over here. Make sure you tap that. And of course, this is what it sounds like. So listen closely. Exciting shit, am I right? You hear that buzzing, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, basically you'll be hearing a buzzing like you'll be hearing like 25 to 30 buzzes like every minute. And that's basically just you tuning into the buzzer radio station out there. In very rare cases, sometimes a pirate will actually infiltrate and communicate with the station. So one of the actual recordings, and this is a transcript of it, was when one pirate hacked in and was like, can I tell a joke? Now, according to the operator at UVB-76, one buzz is yes, two is no. So obviously you got two very clear buzzes for no joke. The guy was like, can I turn on some music? And you got two clear buzzes for no. But why? Are you going to get in trouble if you answer my questions? And the buzzer just starts. So yeah, clearly it's meant for military stuff, not for memes. Now, at times, the Russian military will use this radio station to relay commands, and from my understanding, they actually use it to relay commands to something like their nuclear submarine, so they can, like, reposition or get ready or do things like that. And by the way, for anybody freaking out, this has been happening since, like, the 70s, maybe actually even before that. And, surprisingly, every single country has their own doomsday radios. Whether it be the Chinese, whether it be the Americans, we're always broadcasting crazy shit over the airwaves. Now the thing is, can we actually decrypt this? Probably not. Like, according to one of the Redditors, and I really do trust like a Redditor to know this information because it involves a severe amount of autism to understand it. It's messages encrypted by like a one-time pad, which is a pre-shared key. So basically, these keys have been shared before, and like unless you have access to them, there's no like use trying to decrypt this because it would just never make sense to you. So under perfect OPSEC, basically any Russian spy that's sitting around in the world right now, getting these orders from a doomsday radio, whether they be something as simple as pick up some milk for the for the submarine, Sergey, or, I don't know, whack the fucking president or some shit like that, you'll never really know unless you have access to those keys and you're able to, like, decrypt this shit for yourself. And surprisingly, tons of countries have these radio stations. For instance, the Lincolnshire Poacher, which you can hear right over here. This is actually like for, again, the, I think, Royal Air Force. So when they need to relay commands to like British spies and shit, they've got their own radio stations for it. I love how they follow that up with like a really cute musical tone and everything. Like, you gotta imagine some British spy like perks up hearing that. and I don't know what those numbers could possibly mean. But yeah, really, honestly, the best way to probably understand it is like look at when they were broadcast and see like what crazy shit happens around there, right? Then you'll have a good idea of what that message probably was. But yeah, this is basically like the reality of like how this kind of stuff happens. So number stations being broadcast, again, just to like sort of relax you guys out, none of this is nuclear weapons ready to fire off, okay? If you're worried about that shit, ladies and gentlemen, right now there's some crazy ass shit going on in Iran, and you know, it's got kind of, you know, most people on edge, I would say, watching it, but hopefully it's a situation of nothing ever happens.
Now, what I mentioned earlier in regards to this being like used for nuclear codes and whatnot, a lot of this is unspeculated. Nobody actually knows what UVB is used for, unless, of course, you're the Russian military. But the most common understanding of it, one of the most common, you know, conspiracies or the common beliefs, is that it actually has to do with what is known as the dead hand system. So this is from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and they basically say that it's a system where if, let's say, the Soviet Union died, like imagine if you destroyed the country, right? You know, before nuclear Armageddon began, basically the system exists so that if the Soviets were to fall, no matter what, they would be able to send a signal to the nuclear submarines that would be available, and those nuclear submarines would then launch ICBMs against the enemy of Russia, or enemy of the Soviet Union, which would obviously be the United States and pretty much any other country. Like, nuclear Armageddon would happen regardless if the Soviets existed or not. Like, just the nukes existing and then being positioned and these systems existing was enough. That's how scary some of the nuclear, like, mutually assured destruction stuff actually got. And it still, honestly, is kind of like that to an extent, too.
So, of course, if you look at the old nuke map over here, I love this website. You know, it's a very morbid website to watch. You know, if you live in places like Los Angeles is a big, sprawled out area, okay? You know, you got LA over here, you've got all the way down to Orange County, you've got San Bernardino, Irvine, Long Beach, go down, you'll probably see shit like fucking Oceanside, get down all the way to San Diego. But if you look at LA right over here, actual downtown is, you know, pretty sizable. But utilizing a current nuclear weapon, apparently the W-78, currently in the US's arsenal, I don't know if it's still the most active one, the W-78. This one, if used against us, or if used on us, will actually lead to some pretty terrible repercussions. For instance, if you look at this graph, to decode it, anything in this zone right here, so let's say that you're sitting in the jewelry district, let's say that you're in Skid Row here, you know, all the people in Skid Row, Gallery Row, Jewelry, Historic Core, they're basically vaporized, okay? The fireball radius basically means as soon as this thing blows up, you're subject to so much heat and death that you're gone. It is the quickest, most painless death here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're ever scared of a nuclear weapon, like if I was in LA right now and a nuke was hitting, I'd drive under the nuclear bomb, okay? Because that is the quickest way out. Do you really want to live in a post? It ain't going to be like Fallout, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't going to be fun. It's going to be fucked up. So, of course, you've got the moderate blast damage, which anything outside this area, it's still going to be pretty bad. Now, of course, the radiation radius is also interesting. Remember, when a bomb goes off, right, one of the reasons why in Fallout, I think, they have, like, that Pip-Boy staring like this is that I think if your thumb is bigger than the mushroom cloud, you're safe. If it's smaller, that means you're in the radiation zone. But the thermal zone is even wilder, right? So when the bomb goes off, there's a heat wave that flies rapidly. So as soon as the bomb goes off, you're supposed to get into like a basement or like just hide somewhere or be out of that radius. Because if you're in the fireball radius or the thermal radius, you get cooked alive, okay? Now anybody that's out in like Beverly Hills, WoHo, maybe up in the mountains over here, you know, anything in this area, it's still going to be bad, but it's a lot less painful than what you're seeing in the center. Now, of course, this is just by one bomb. You might be like, well, that's just a part of LA. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we live in the age of MIRVs. So basically what a MIRV is like it's a missile that goes up into the air, then it opens up into like 8 different MIRVs or 8 different missiles. And those 8 missiles hit everything. Now, if you go back to the nuke map, 8 missiles, yeah, they can cover a whole chunk of LA right here. Basically, if the country gets nuked, everything gets nuked, and then we're all pretty much done, okay? That's why I don't really have a doomer mentality. If it happens, Ivan Drago style, motherfucker, it happens. And it's also one of these reasons why, like, the whole world is scared to do this shit to each other, because, listen, if the world ends, that means everything is fucking gone. Okay, it's just done. Now, just for goofy, just for shits and giggles, I always like to test what is the SAR Bomba, which is like the largest bomb ever designed. This is one that's apparently not even tested; it's just designed. And just to see what it would do if like one of these bastards popped off, bro, it's all over at this point. It's just done. Like the insanity of this bomb, it's wild, right? Like it's crazy to see. It's just. Nuclear weapons, man, I'm telling you, it's the scariest thing that humanity has ever cooked up. And I'm pretty sure if you looked at, like, the alien Fermi paradox shit, this would be, like, the great filter, right? Like, I think it's once a society develops nuclear weapons, it pretty much is on the verge of dying. But anyways, nuclear, like, stuff aside, obviously I want to look a little bit more into this, like, radio and just sort of start talking about all of the crazy shit around it. So about 2 weeks ago, Swan Lake started getting played, which apparently is like reference to when like the Soviet Union was like falling. But how does like a radio station from like Russia's military end up getting hacked? Well, it's not that it actually gets hacked. It's because there's actually a lot of pirates that are around and are actually just broadcasting and hijacking the radio. So for instance, a lot of the actual hackers around the world, or like anyone near these broadcast stations or the receivers, will typically blast audio at the exact same, at the exact same range, at the exact same signal, which I just showed you how to access not too long ago. And when they do that, they can blast whatever audio they want, and then they actually broadcast audio files that have images hidden inside of them. So, for instance, a bunch of people will probably stuff in a whole lot of, Guy Fawkes masks and just, broadcast them on this range. So when you hear it, your spectrogram on your radio will print out an actual Guy Fawkes mask. In some cases on the frequency you'll see stuff like the troll face, so that's there. Sometimes a pirate will just broadcast that. And the way that it works is they broadcast to the frequency and just flood out the actual official comms from Russia. So basically the rest of the world, when they're tuning in, they just see what the hacker is broadcasting, obviously illegally in that case. And never forget, sometimes you can even have a bunch of furry nonsense blown up too. So yeah, honestly, one of the big issues with this stuff too is when you're like the Russians and you're trying to send out coded signals, sometimes it's going to be annoying when your submarines are tuning in and all they see is a fucking giant furry. And one thing that's also really wild too is it's not just troll faces, sometimes it's just audio. So for instance, a week ago on the Russian Doomsday Radio, this was playing, so We Are Charlie Kirk. Just imagine you're just imagine you're in a Russian submarine, you're tuning in and you're just Vadim, what is this Charlie Kirk song they're playing? So funny. Obviously, for some of y'all watching, there's an entire research group centered around all the radio stations in the world because, of course, it's the internet. They're all going to do it. Now, for anybody that's interested, a lot of countries actually have their numbers research stations sort of brought out into the world. So if you're Russian ground forces, for instance, you've got a whole